Thanks for tuning into the Marriage is Tougher Than Woodpecker Lips podcast. This is Paul, alongside my co host Brian. We'd like to welcome you to a community meant for the men of the world to share our thoughts and perspectives on marriage. We can learn from each other's experience and help each other be better husbands. Today's topic, we're going to talk about creating opportunities to grow your relationship with other couples.
And we'd like to, real quick, just invite you to link up with us on our socials. Searching Marriage is Tougher, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and engage with us there. If you'd like to be a guest, you can catch us at marriageistuffer.com. There's a short form at the bottom of the page for you to fill out. You can also find all of our archived episodes there. If you want to continue the conversation on any of the topics or pitch your topic idea to us, you can do that over on Instagram. We will respond to you there. And let's just get into this episode.
All right, B. It is important to me that we continue to grow, right? And in all areas, right? Our personal lives, what we can do better with ourselves, how we can just cultivate our relationship with our spouses and grow there. You know, if we have kids or other things, those relationships are important to grow too, right? The whole family unit. But something that helps us grow as a unit is to be able to sit with other couples and just have conversations about life, about what's going on, about our marriages. If we give them that space, about our families, all these things. But in order to do that, you have to have time to sit with those couples, right? It just doesn't magically appear. Um, I had a great experience with this last night. So I just wanted to talk about that today on the podcast and how we can be better at creating that space.
That's something I certainly wish I was better at. I don't spend so much time creating that space. And for that reason, I'm not going to go as far as to say that, I have any broken relationships or anything like that, right? However, I think a lot of our relationships could be a lot better and on a deeper level if we were more intentional about spending time with other couples, talking about our marriages, being open enough to talk about some of the difficulties, some of the successes. I almost want to equate it to when you get used to talking about money around other people, right? Where it doesn't become so taboo, you gain a deeper understanding. You catch what I'm
Yeah,
trying to say?
yeah. I mean, it's every opportunity is a bridge for deeper opportunities,
Hmm.
if that makes sense, right? So it's not always been a strong suit for Crystal and I, and we've definitely become more intentional as we realize that God has blessed us with the ability to be vulnerable and to be able to model this for others, right? So it's hard to, or it's easier to encourage others to do something that you're already doing,
Hmm.
right? Just like you said for your money example, talking about money, right? Like if you are um used to talking about money, it's easier to say, hey, like we can make this a safe space for everybody. And then everyone has the ability, right? And it's kind of like what we're doing here, right? Just having conversations about being husbands and wanting to be better. Like as we've had more conversations, it's easier for us to encourage others to do so.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that step out and start and then bring
Yeah.
others alongside.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find myself doing that a lot more nowadays, right? I won't call it pitching the podcast, right? But I will mention it often. One, because I want people to know, but also because it's a good lead in to starting that type of conversation with someone who I know is a husband, right? It and by lead in, it's more or less, hey, we're about to get into this topic, right? You can choose to leave or stay, but here's where the direction of the conversation is about to go. And it's funny, I find men are open to it, you know, especially when women aren't around. They feel
Hmm.
more free to talk about their stuff. So I guess it might be pertinent for us to kind of talk about the dynamic of how you can be free with your conversation as a man, knowing your wife is sitting there, and then the other couple has a wife sitting there.
Right. Um, I think it's growing in relationships individually. It obviously helps if one of you in the couple are close or trying to be closer, right? Whether it's the two husbands or, the two wives, just because that helps with the lead up to, hey, we're going to spend this time with these people.
Right.
It and that. So I'll say for my example, right? So it's if our wives are getting close or they are close, and knowing that we're going to get together as a couple, you know, as long as I like the other husband, like, and we don't have an issue, I'm open to, you know, getting together and getting to know him more and getting to know them more as a couple. So I think starting out with a relationship that is already strong in or getting strong, like growing strong, and not having an issue with the other person. Because obviously it's not going to work if if I don't like the other husband, or he rubs me the wrong way, or um he says a lot of stupid stuff, right? The hurdle is larger,
Yeah.
right? I mean, not to say it can't be done, because we all have grace and we should be kind, and if it's important to your wife, you're probably going to, make an effort. But at the same time, to help this transition or help to dive into this deeper faster, you have to, have a commonality, be kind to each other, like each other, find something that you can do to talk about. Um, and that would be probably a good way to start.
Yeah. So my thought now is, how do you mitigate getting your feelings hurt, right? So the point I'm trying to make is, naturally, when people start talking about their relationship, opening up about
Hmm.
things that have happened, things that they would like to happen, plans for the future, but specifically to past occurrences, right? um, there is probably a high potential for something being brought up that you may not want to have been brought up. You may not want to talk about it at all. How do you have the conversation with your wife where, like, hey, let's ease into this, because until I get comfortable about
Yeah, I mean, I mean, the first time, I'm assuming the first time you ever meet with, like, get together with another couple, it's probably a feeling out type of deal, right? So, long story short, it's time. It's multiple occurrences with um, this couple, and seeing that they're okay, seeing that they're safe, seeing that they're on the same plane, seeing that they're here for the betterment of everyone, right? They're here to
yeah,
help your marriage. They understand you're here to help theirs. Or you're just trying to be friends,
right,
right? Understanding that you're growing your relationship to be friends with them, to have a, a deeper relationship than just acquaintances, right? It's not just, oh, this couple that we do stuff with, but this is a couple that we we enjoy time and we value. So that's a different dynamic. But I'd say you start off understanding you're not going to jump in to the deep end. Now, some couples, the dynamic is one is way more vulnerable than the other, either
Hmm.
couple wise or one spouse is more vulnerable than the other. So it could be as simple as having a conversation beforehand in the beginning, right? But once you build that equity with that couple, then just know that we're vulnerable here and we're going to lean in. But I think giving space for that to grow um, is very important.
Yeah, you're right. I think, like we talk about most times, is the rehearsal or practice of having those types of conversations, working on your ability to be vulnerable with people other than your wife, um, kind of leans into that ability to be able to share more of your story and things of that nature. While it can be difficult, what I've found is it does get easier, right? Um, and I think if you work on that with another couple, you'll see that they will become more willing to share their story and more accepting of the things that you choose to share. So I like that, man. I kind of just want to put it out there because I feel like that could be one of these barriers where a couple could say, I don't know, man. That's a little too much for me to go just put my business out there, right? But we've already discussed that this is supposed to be a safe space for us to converse. We've, hopefully maybe learned that we can trust the other couple with the information and, uh, kind of have a spoken slash unspoken agreement that, this is kind of an in-house conversation.
Yeah, I mean, something that Krista and I did was we got with couples that we really liked and felt that we had something in common with and have actually had um, a long time of growing relationships with. And we're trying to each year have like a just a time with them at dinner or something, go out and say, hey, like, are we on the same page? Like, this is what we see, this is what we kind of want to um, we want to keep growing with you. Is that something you still want to do? Are we see ourselves at this space with you? Is this where you see us? And this is where we see you. And so kind of make those lines clear.
Hmm.
And again, this is couples that we've been, friends with for years. So it's not just the first time. But you can also do that if you find there's people that you really like, excuse me, that you can set up and it's like, hey, like I want to go deeper. Is this something that you want? Like, I want us to be in each other's lives and lay out what you'd see and ask them if that's something they'd want. At least then and you're not wasting your time thinking you're building towards something that they're totally not interested or want to engage in.
Yeah. So if someone was out there and they're struggling to know where to start, right? What would be some of the topics that you would advise the couples to talk about?
That's a good question. Um, I think topics that you can start with is any topic you're comfortable talking about growth for yourself with, right? So if you know you need to grow in um, being on time somewhere, right? Like you're constantly kind of running late as a personal thing, right? Your spouse may be great. Maybe it bleeds over to both of you being late because obviously you're a unit. But if that's something you're willing to talk about, start with something you're willing to talk about that focuses on you so that you're able to share um, and show that you're open for critique, constructive criticism, and being able to implement something that someone says so they can see like, hey, like I asked him to do this, he's actually trying it, and then the next time you can come back and say, hey, I tried this, this worked, this didn't work, blah blah blah, And then that next time your wife will be like, yeah, he tried this. This is what I saw, blah, blah, blah. So now you're both into it as a unit, even though you're the focus. So that way they can see, oh, they're working on things, blah, blah, blah. And this is how they communicate. I'd say that'd be the first thing to make it easier.
Yeah. Hashtag relatable about being late. No, I like that, man. You know, and I would double down on that too. Start with what you're comfortable with, right? Because chances are, if you've gone through the process of setting this up, there's more than likely something that you want to work on, an area you want to grow in. And I find for myself, simply asking the other couple in an open-ended question type of style, like, hey, how do you guys deal with this? Like, we've been struggling in this area on this thing, we'd like to be better. How does that work for you? The couple that we get to talk to occasionally, um, we admire their ability with no kids to be able to travel as much as they do, right? um, and I think I may have even brought this up on the pod before, but just sitting down and talking to them about how do they make that work, how do they budget for it, those types of things, right? It's an area we want to be better at. And having that conversation gave us some insight into how we might be able to implement some of their things into our life, but knowing obviously that our lifestyles are different with having children and not having children. You get to pick and choose what will work for you. So not everything is going to be, cookie cutter for every relationship, but, just having the conversation helps.
Yeah, that was my next thing. I was going to say, find something that you admire about that couple and ask them how they got there. And
Mm-hmm.
then ask them how they think you could implement it. So give them a chance to uh, teach and kind of mentor in that space. Um, and that will hopefully bring up something that they see in you or give them the ability to hear from you, understanding that they're pouring in. It's a give and take type of thing. So I think, yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. So this is my next point is going to be a little bit funny, I think, but it warrants the thought. In a time where you feel like the experience with a specific couple should probably come to an end for whatever reason, what would you say is a graceful way to kind of bow out without hurting someone's feelings?
I think I think a way to do that is to be available still,
Okay.
as far as um, whatever conversation style you have, however you check in or whatever, like, hey, what's going on, all that stuff. But maybe just pull back on those actual interactions, right? So maybe maybe you've hung out with them, you do it like every quarter or something, right? So maybe you just don't set them up as frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or if you if you want to continue the relationship and something happened that caused it to not be, if you've built a friendship, you should be able to have that conversation
Right.
about
Right.
it. Um, and then if you once you have that conversation, then you're either going to grow towards, let's get it back to where it was or where we think is a healthy place, or you just mutually decide to just continue to be chill. I'll pray for you, you pray for me. And when we see each other, whatever, we'll reach out maybe for big events or stuff, but maybe we just won't be as deep. Maybe that season has ended. And I think that's why it's good to check in every, year or so just to make sure. And if it's not, like, life happens. I mean, we had a friend that we reached out to, and they're like, hey, like, they have their own businesses right now, and they have, two young kids. They're like, hey, like, that's not something we can't extend time to that because it takes time to build that relationship. I mean, we'll
Hmm.
still be at each other's birthday parties and all that, but like as a couple, we don't have time to do that. But like, I still get together with, the husband for breakfast when we can. But again, he's building his business and his brand and all that stuff. So like we haven't met together, but it was just, hey, we put the ask out. They're like, hey, right now we're not in the season of life to do that. No love lost.
Right.
It's just seasons have changed.
Yeah. I think I had this image in my head where, you know, one side of the couples could become heavily dependent on the other couple, right? Maybe the topics become a little bit too heavy, and you might realize these folks need some counseling, right? And we're not appropriate for that. So it was a little bit of how to bow out of that situation and
Mm,
gracefully, you know, say to them, you know, you might want to consider something like that. Um, but also maybe setting a limit for the parameters of that relationship, right?
hmm
Um, God forbid there be any, like abuse situations or something like that, but you could potentially run into it,
hmm
right? So just being prepared as much as you can for something like that, and having an idea of how to help in the ways that you can, and like I said, just kind of gracefully exiting the situation, uh, so it doesn't become detrimental to your relationship.
Man, that's so good. I'm glad that you called that out specifically. I mean, the goal is that you're growing as friends,
Hmm.
right? So when it gets and you see some things, I mean, we're big, you and I, as well as
Right.
Crystal and I, we're big advocates for going to see professional help,
Yeah.
right? So like that is a clear if we see it, we're gonna say, hey, like you should probably see someone with this, or hey, like have you ever thought of, maybe trying some medication because it seems like you're all over the place, and you should really talk to a professional that can evaluate you, and put you in the right place. You want to see what balance level is, what base level is. You may have never felt that, with medication that can help. You feel what base
Mhm.
level is, and then you now work toward that. And we're here to walk with you. We're on that journey, right? So it's letting them know that they're supported, what you see, but also encouraging them to do so. And sometimes it might even get to the point like, hey, like we keep coming to these conversations and we're going round and round. Like you should probably see someone. And if they're still not like, maybe we can't have these conversations like in this manner anymore until, you know, you go ahead and get some help.
Yeah.
So it's all for the betterment of them and even that individual. Um, so I think that's what you have to put at the forefront and remember. Like we're trying to cultivate a healthy space. And if that means one of us, need to go get some outside help, that's fine too.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I think you have to go into the situation knowing that it's okay to what's the word I'm looking for? Set some hardline parameters
Hmm
for where the space is, right? And be willing to, you know, kind of hit your stop loss and
Yeah.
get out before you get, over your head or in a situation that uh, could just be detrimental to everyone. So yeah, I just wanted to bring it up because it, it could be a thing, you know.
No, that's a great point.
But yeah, man, we're at time. So is there anything off the top of your head you think we should mention?
I would just encourage, you as husbands, if your wife brings it up that she wants to get together with the couple, and thinks that, you and their husband might hit it off. Be open to it. See what happens. Don't go in expecting to be super vulnerable right away. But if that's the way the conversation goes, maybe lean into it.
Yeah.
But just know that it's everything that we do. We have to look at it for the long haul, right? Like, could you see yourself, meeting with this couple again and just hanging out? And if you can, just set it up and do it the next time and see. Eventually, you'll get to a space where, you're just over at their house around the fire, with drinks in hand, just talking about life. And then that is where, synergy happens, ideas happens, and just kind of a building up of each other as personal people, personally and as a unit. So don't shy away, and I would say identify people that you think, one or two couples that you may want to get with and give it a try.
Yeah. And the last point I'll make on it is be willing to reach up in relationship, right? If and I think Paul may have said it before, but if there's something that you see in a couple that you admire, be willing to reach up to them to ask them, "Hey, is this something you'd be willing to do with us? We admire your relationship. We would like to grow into more of the relationship that we see that you have." And then inversely, if someone reaches out to you because they admire something about you, be willing to share your experiences with them in the same manner, that you've more than likely benefited from couples that you've admired in the past. So that's all I got on that.
Great point.
Uh, we do want to take another opportunity to invite you to link up with us on our socials, searching Marriage is Tougher through Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you want to be a guest on the show, feel free to reach us at marriagestougher.com. There's a short form at the bottom of the page where you can give us your information. We'll reach out and get you scheduled up to be a guest on the show. All of our episodes are archived there as well. And if you would like to continue the conversation on any of the topics or even just pitch a topic idea, be a part of the community, reach us over on Instagram, and you can continue those conversations there. Outside of that, we'll talk to you next time.
Peace.